Okay, I'm going to get a little bit into Elizabeth Morton here with the daughter of Charles Morton and Mary Berkeley. It was born May 26, 1745 at Kendal. And I'll just mention a few names and I'll go a little bit into some of the detail that I'm only going to be able to do right now off the top of my head. Elizabeth Morton ended up marrying a man named James Danzy, and they had there's a memorial at a church that has there are monumental inscriptions for James Danzy, his wife Elizabeth, and some of their children. And it's probably going to take me too long to find the entry that I wanted. I want to cite here because I have got just a ton of records here. My God, look at all this. But on those monumental inscriptions, it has a James Danzy, it has James Danzy Jr., and it also has, I think they had a daughter named Flora, just going off of memory. The exact marriage date, I wish I had put in the article. Okay, she married James Danzy between 5th August 1767 and the end of 1769, and I don't know the exact location. Between Elizabeth Danzy and Elizabeth Morton and James Danzy, their children were Mary Danzy, which I don't know what happened to her. Then there was a James Henry Danzy that died October 1797, and fortunately that was during Dr. Morton's life. He lived to see his grandson die. And then there was a daughter, Elizabeth Danzy, and there was another daughter named Flora Danzy that died in 1778. Now, of the surviving children, the Mary Danzy married a John Freeman in 1798. And Elizabeth Danzy married Richard Barnaby. And here it is. According to the 1812 edition of Collins' Peerage on page 622, Mary Berkeley died March 10, 1755. And this will be important as part of the overall bigger piece of the puzzle as to figuring out how many wives Charles Morton had and just who the mother or father may be of Charles Carp. It's a whole different subject I won't get into now. Okay, now I've thought to myself that maybe Mary Berkeley didn't actually die in 1755, but maybe in 1754, and the reason is that in June of 1754, Lady Vere, who I think may have, she was the wife of Vere Beauclerk, who was an illegitimate descendant of Charles II, if I got that right. She wrote a letter of recommendation for Dr. Morton to temporarily replace Dr. Conyers, who had recently resigned. And I think Lady Vere may have been a relation to Mary Berkeley, and this was her way of helping him get through the turmoil of that death. Now, on January 16, 1752, and this would be about 3 years before Mary Berkeley had passed away, he was elected to be a member of the Royal Society. So to me that means he was more or less situated in the London area at that time. So now I'm looking more to expect a burial for Mary Berkeley Morton somewhere around the London area. The Dictionary of National Biography does cite Mary Berkeley's burial, and it's based on an entry in Edward Ironside's History and Antiquities of Twickenham, and he has some monumental inscriptions and tombstone dates in there, and there is a Mary Berkeley's death listed in there, but that death was listed in after 1767 when Charles Morton married his second wife, Lady Savile, and so either he was a bigamist or that Mary Berkeley isn't the one the entry for, and I don't think he was a bigamist, and that Mary Berkeley is, that they cite in the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography, is not Charles Morton's wife. There were other Berkeleys that coincidentally lived down in Twickenham, as did other descendants of Charles II that also did, including Lady Montague, the home in which Charles Morton would later occupy, and the name would be changed to Savile House. But I'm going all over the place with this stuff. But anyway, in June of 1754, Lady Vere, the wife of Vere Beauclerk, 1st Baron Vere, wrote a letter of recommendation for Dr. Morton to temporarily replace Dr. Conyers, who had recently resigned. The recommendation was followed through in July 1754, next month, when he was appointed to attend for the time being. And they're talking about the Foundling Hospital, and this will also be an important piece of evidence related to Charles Carr Morton. The Foundling Hospital is basically a hospital where orphaned children or children without parents who were just found stranded were taken to be cared for. And Dr. Morton worked there first before he ended up working at the British Museum. Now, what drew him from Kendal to the London area is unclear to me. I don't know if Mary Berkeley had connections there or he went there on his own, but nonetheless, he did, and this is basically what had happened. Okay. Now, Dr. Morton's second known marriage was to marry a woman born as Mary Pratt. And she, at the time, was calling herself Lady Savile, even though her name was Mrs. Mary Wallace at the time. She first had married a man named George Savile, who was the 7th Baronet. I don't remember if it was the Savile, Baronet Savile, or what baronetage it was. But he married Lady Savile on August 25th, 1767 at St. George's, Bloomsbury, which is, according to the Wikipedia article, right across the street from the British Museum to this day, so I think it was at least fairly close. Dr. Morton's marriage date is often misidentified as 1722, and that refers back to the Dictionary of National Biography, which even the 1812 edition says that he was born in 1772, but he wasn't. And the reason why I know this is because there is a scanned copy of the records of the Lumleys of Lumley Castle, and on page 207 it clearly indicates that Lady Savile was married to Captain Wallace in May of 1744, and that was her second marriage, and that and the marriage record at St. George's Bloomsbury clearly identifies Mary Wallace as Charles Morton's bride on August 25th, 1767. Now, when Lady Savile married Dr. Morton, she was 61 years old, and that was her third marriage. Her first marriage was to George Savile, the 7th Baronet, on December 19, 1722, and that's when Dr. Charles Morton was a mere 6 years old. By her first marriage with George Savile, she was the mother of Arabella Savile, who married John Thorney Hewitt on July 23, 1744. And then Barbara Savile, the second daughter, married Richard Lumley, and that's where the records of the Lumleys of Lumley Castle come in, on December 26, 1752. And the final child was a George Savile, the eighth and final Baronet Savile, and he died. The baronetage ended up dying out at that point. Now, Lady Savile's second marriage to Captain Wallace took place 8 months after George Savile died, and before George Savile died, he had made attempts to divorce Mary Pratt, his wife, Lady Savile, but it wasn't completed by the time he died. Lady Savile ended up dying on February 14, 1791, and her mother, Honorata Brooks Pratt, was the first cremated individual in England, having died December 25th, 1769. And her father was John Pratt, the Vice Treasurer of Ireland. It's no real small thing. Now, Dr. Morton lived at Twickenham at the former home of Lady Elizabeth Montague, called Montague House, prior to his acquiring it, and it was called Savile House thereafter. So even though after Lady